Hello and welcome back to the Edge of the Box podcast, a podcast by WhoScored.com. I'm joined by Sam and Ali to go through this week's Premier League fixtures. And Ali, welcome to the show because you only knew you were doing this show about 15 minutes ago. Good to have you on again, though.
Yeah, George has picked up the man flu that's been doing the rounds, but I am always lurking at the edge of the box. So here we go.
Nice. Oh, that is absolutely seamless. And Sam, in fairness, it's been the international break. These are the things you have to go with in the international break. People can come back a little bit worse for wear, and that's why managers hate them and they're so disruptive.
Yeah, presumably George played an international qualifier late Thursday night in Australia, couldn't get back for the game in time Saturday afternoon, had to be put on the bench for the week. That's just the way it goes. That's what happens when you've got your Mila Jedinaks in your squad and also your George Elix.
I think he was
and a really good club and team would give the guy who's next off the bench an opportunity, and if they perform well, it'd be their spot to lose. So it's I don't want it to be automatically assumed that George will come back when he's fit. That would be bad for motivation for sure.
I mean, in fairness, I thought you were very good last time, and he was lucky to keep his place the week after. So if you put in another display at late notice this week, who knows? It could be the end of George Ellis on the Edge of the Box podcast. Undoubtedly one of the biggest games this weekend, probably the biggest game of the weekend, in fact, is Liverpool against Everton. And Sam, there's been a bit of an improvement in Everton recently. Part of that to do with the fact that players have come back from fitness, and one of them being Jack Harrison finally coming into the side, because he has made a difference for Everton, and they look a bit more fluid going forward in general. Now Calvert-Lewin's fit again, McNeil's fit again. So Sean Dyche was always saying we're creating chances, we're just not putting them away. They've finally got some players with a bit of productivity in that front three now. Well, front 2, 3, 4, whatever it is.
Yeah, they do. The Harrison goal against Bournemouth was wonderful, wasn't it? Absolutely wonderful. I assumed it was Dwight McNeil. That's how good it was. Because it was left foot and it was an absolute cracker. I was like, oh, Dwight McNeil scored a great goal. Forgetting that Jack Harrison had obviously come into the team, despite the fact that he played really quite well, wouldn't you agree, Dan, against Villa in the midweek game? Not that Villa were particularly good, but yes, he's made a real impact. McNeil and Harrison at each side. They're very Sean Dyche wingers, aren't they? Goodness me, they're very Sean Dyche wingers. They do the hard yards, they track back, they're very comfortable in the wide areas, they're very good at crossing the ball. So, yes, good for Harrison to come in after obviously a slow start with the injury. Good for Dominic Calvert-Lewin to get fit and play a few games. Again, he scored against Villa and he said afterwards, I was booed off in the last game, so this is an improvement. It all just feels like it's getting a bit better. And you know what surprises me is that it's getting better from an attacking perspective. This is very contrasting to what I think we'd expect from Sean Dyche. When you bring Sean Dyche in, what do you expect? You think, right, Tarkowski's going to head 150 balls clear out of this box. And they're going to be really solid defensively. They're going to tighten up. That hasn't really happened. They've conceded quite a lot of goals under Sean Dyche, but he's actually livened them up from an attacking perspective first this season. And that has surprised me just a little bit.
Yeah, Ali, it's very Sean Dyche that in Everton's top 10 performers, James Tarkowski is number 1 with 7.05 as the average rating. He's been playing next to Braithwaite so far this season, who's emerging as a talent at centre back as well. But as Sam mentioned, from an attacking sense, we've got the numbers here in terms of big chances missed in the Premier League so far this season. Everton are far and away top with 21. So Sean Dyche was right in that the building blocks were probably there. They were just missing chances, and now they've got these kind of better players back in the final third. They're starting to get results.
Yeah, there's something funny, ironic, I'm not quite sure what the word is, about the fact that Sean Dyche, who was in the early sort of era of the football analytics and fanalytics movement, Sean Dyche became referred to as the warlock by those who like looking at underlying numbers, because he was the one at Premier League level, at least, whose teams constantly bucked the trend, constantly scored more than they were expected to, conceded fewer than they were expected to, and this is now kind of the other side of it. We've all seen the tweets doing the rounds about them, essentially generating as many chances or better chances than I think every team in the Premier League apart from one at the moment. So it's impressive. It's unfortunate for them that the chances aren't flying in. But you mentioned Tarkowski, and it just made me think that Dyche's football philosophy, I would say, is to get the most out of the players that he has by accentuating their strengths and trying to make sure that their weaknesses aren't exposed. And I think now this Everton team, he's started to really achieve that more so than previously in his tenure. Tarkowski is a big part of that. But also, I think the midfield of Gay, Doucouré and Onana gives them such a great platform to play from. And then, as discussed, those two wingers who are good at crossing. And that's a big part of Sean Dyche's football. But also, they seem to have the options in the middle, or at least one more option in the middle. They needed someone to both challenge Calvert-Lewin when he was fit and play instead of Calvert-Lewin when he wasn't fit. And in Beto, they appear to have someone who, albeit it's only been, 250 minutes or so, looks pretty lively and is doing quite a lot of good things in terms of being an aerial presence, being a handful, pressing, getting in quite good positions, getting a lot of shots off. He just hasn't put the ball in the net yet. So either he's a really poor finisher and he will consistently squander chances, or, as the case may be, he might go on a bit of a run with a bit of luck and a fair win. So it's important to have anyone really that suited the style outside of DCL. And I think in Beto, they've got that. So it's hard not to be pretty positive because it was a season predicted anyway to be full of doom and gloom.
Yeah, they spent a lot of money on Beto, actually. I set myself a challenge at the start of the season. I've not done very well with this challenge so far this season, in that I was going to watch more football in other leagues and other countries. I actually watched Udinese's first game of the season. Beto played against Juve and they lost, but he looked actually really, really lively. And I've always thought he looked lively when I've seen him play for Everton as well. But it's just putting the ball in the net does seem to be the problem for him. But you're right, having another physical option when Calvert-Lewin's not there, because he hasn't been there a lot. Even that must be a bit of a confidence booster to the Everton fans. Do you think we'll ever see him go full Burnley Dyche and play Beto and Calvert-Lewin up top together? Because they're a team of big boys, Sam, as well. When you think of Onana and Doucouré in midfield as well, the two centre-backs, from set pieces, they could prove a real handful if they did that.
Yeah, they really would. I think the chances of that, or the scenarios in which they can do that, few and far between, probably be just because Onana has become so important, or Doucouré has become so important as the kind of furthest forward midfielder. I think what Dyche is getting out of either one of those two, depending on who's fit, as the sort of nominal number 10, is really, really crucial to how the team play. And so if you took a player out to create that second striker role, I think you'd have to take that player out or drop one of those two back. And I'm not convinced that that's what they need to be doing right now, because, as we've discussed, they're not struggling to create chances. They need to put them in the back of the net. And now that they've got Harrison fit, McNeil's back fit, and they've got one of those two strikers plus Onana, like you back them to start chipping away at that XG regression. There will be some scenarios where that happens. Maybe late in games, maybe when you're at home to one of the...
I was going to say, we could see it this weekend if they're behind against Liverpool with 10-15 minutes to go. You wouldn't be surprised if he just thinks, right, let's get them both up there and start slinging balls into the box. Yeah, for sure. It's a game state scenario where you're behind, or if you're maybe at home from the start against one of the weaker teams, if they've managed to climb out of trouble. I think we're a little bit far away from that, just because the midfield quality is so strong. And if Onana wasn't as good as he is, I probably wouldn't be saying this, but it's really hard to look past what they've done so far with him.
Yeah. Can Everton get anything this weekend? Do you think, Sam? Would you back them to go there and pick up anything this weekend? I mean, don't want to spoil your predictions, but where can they hurt Liverpool?
Yeah, I mean, this is a horrible fixture for them, isn't it?
Not ideal.
It's just historically it's been pretty terrible for them. Even in the bad days, they struggle to win it. Bad days for Liverpool, that is. And I mean, I'm not the only one sat here that's thinking that Liverpool look pretty damn good right now. In midfield especially, they look pretty damn good. So we're singing Everton's praises in certain areas, but Liverpool look even stronger than Everton in these areas. So I think this is a real struggle. This is a really difficult one.
Yeah. Let's look a little bit at Liverpool now then, Ali, and we'll start with the man who's never far away from the headlines or being discussed. It's Trent Alexander-Arnold, been away with England on international duty, started the first game, wasn't involved in the second. He hasn't made the Who Scored combined 11, which we'll come on to later. But if we flash up his numbers from this season compared to last season, most things are down. He has had a more subdued start. He was really involved in everything towards the back end of last season. I've watched him play a few times. He actually ran the game against Villa at Anfield.
He was so good against Villa. You look at his Who Scored ratings and you're like, Cool. Where was that against everyone else?
Yeah, but other than that game, his ratings haven't been particularly high, Ali. But he's doing that same kind of hybrid role that he was doing at the back end of last season. So, on the face of it, there's no reason for his numbers to be down. Is it maybe a fact of that, as Sam mentioned, Liverpool's midfield's better this season and they're better on the ball, so they're having more of the ball than perhaps the Liverpool midfield did last season?
Yeah, it's very difficult, really, to kind of accurately separate the way in which a team is playing and other individuals in the team are playing onto an individual player and work out exactly why their numbers might have changed. It could easily be a system thing and or a performance thing when it comes to Trent. I think generally where I stand is the focus should be on, are the team performing well? Are the team performing better? And try not to get too caught up in the individual stuff, because, as I say, that can fluctuate quite a bit. You know, he is clearly doing less of the things that he has done in the past, and that we kind of picture him doing a lot more, a lot fewer kind of assists from open play or XG assists from open play, a lot fewer crosses. But I think one of the ideas behind him coming inside is to try and get Mo Salah isolated against fullbacks. And not just Salah, but actually, if you look at the sort of average touch maps of Liverpool's right-sided centre midfielder, which might be Harvey Elliott, could be any number of players, that they have a real onus on getting wide as well. So Klopp has made a decision that actually he wants the players at the very top end of the pitch holding the width. And I kind of don't hate it as an idea, even if it means Trent can't whip in as many crosses from wide areas. He can still make brilliant passes from deep, lofted ones over the top, curling over the defence, but away from the goalkeeper. He can still do that. And he can develop his kind of more pressurised possession game, I think, which can't hurt for the long run. So I'm still kind of for it, even if his numbers have dropped off. And, just in this game specifically, the idea of Trent inverting and dragging players inside, sucking them inside to create space for Salah to be isolated against Mykolenko. Those are the scenarios that teams want now. And those are going to be really dangerous scenarios. So I think it's just a case of trying to adapt, trying to change the way that the team plays. And Trent, thankfully being good enough really to still hold his own despite having to make some sacrifices himself.
Yeah, let's just talk about Trent in England briefly, Sam. It's not on the running order, but I want to ask you about it. We're not going to get him into Southgate's team because we don't have a say, but he's such a good player. He's so good to watch. He played that game in midfield in the summer, albeit it was against weak opposition. I thought he was really good, and I think that's probably his position for England now. But surely there just has to be a way to get him in the team. I accept that Kyle Walker is the right back, and I wouldn't change that. But there has to be a way to get Trent Alexander-Arnold and his unbelievable passing range into that team.
Yeah, the thing is, it's just not going to be a right back, is it? Realistically speaking, as you say, Kyle Walker's the right back, and I think we know that second in line is Kieran Trippier. And I don't know where Reece James factors into this, but I think if he's fit, he's ahead of Trent too, because Southgate doesn't seem to like Trent very much at right back, and I can understand why. It's probably the same reason that Klopp has decided to invert him into midfield, to protect him against certain defensive frailties, as well as accentuate ball playing strengths as well. The key to good management. But I think the way into the team for Trent for England is we have a spot in midfield that we can treat as situational. I give a shout out to the Athletics' Liam Tharm here for kind of broaching this yesterday on social media, because I really took inspiration from it. I was quite terrified by it, actually, as well as enthused that England we don't have the perfect midfield profile to go alongside Rice and Jude Bellingham, but we do have like 4 different ones that we could use situationally, because it would depend on what opposition we play. So when England play Australia, who will sit in, sure, get Trent on the pitch, get him spanking the ball around left and right, no problem. When England play against a very strong opposition, maybe he's not the one, maybe he's not the move. England get to treat that midfield spot as situational and depends on the opponent, and get to pick between Henderson and Phillips and Trent and maybe even Maddison or whatever. That's the way in. And unfortunately, it's not an everyday starter role. It's just not. But it is a way in, which is more than he's had for how many years?
Yeah, I just absolutely love watching him. Honestly, his delivery is so good. I just always think when he's sat on the bench and he doesn't even get on, I just think, he's too good a player to not be on the pitch for England. He's an unbelievable footballer. Look, everyone has their stuff with Southgate and England, but I just sometimes sit there and think he has to be in the team in some way because he's that good.
We've got options, haven't we? Like,
no, I know.
The wingers. Saka and who's going to start when all are fit? Saka and Rashford would be my guess. Doesn't matter if it's true or not. Let's just say it's that. Foden got to be on the pitch. Amazing player. Grealish got to be on the pitch. It extends to multiple positions, and all it does is speak to how strong a crop of players we've got, and how difficult that job must be, figuring it all out.
No, true. And Liverpool themselves have got something to figure out in midfield because they've got better options now, Ali. It's a different profile of midfield player in their squad this season. They've got Ryan Gravenberch in there. Now, I've actually stated elsewhere that when he gets going, I think that could be one of the smartest pickups of the summer. Because I'm not saying he's as good as Jude Bellingham, but I think he's a bit of an all-rounder like Jude Bellingham. There's very few things that he's not good at in midfield. It'll be interesting to see kind of when he breaks in for Liverpool and if he can stay there. But I think he's a real high-level footballer.
Yeah, spot on. I think peak Gravenberch, if he can reach that, will be unbelievably exciting. Now, I don't know the full context of the last few years, but clearly he hasn't been sustaining a level of peak Gravenberch. So there'll be no doubt reasons behind that. And, I generally back players who are this young and players who have, maybe started playing their career quite early and had moves and different situations. I generally think that the class will shine through at some point. So I definitely think there's a great chance that this could end up looking like a brilliant pickup. At his best, he definitely makes things happen on the ball, both in terms of kind of that ball carrying potential, that press resistance, being a decent passer and a creator, someone that always looks to play forward, very front footed out of possession as well, I think. But that's Pete Gravenberch, and I'm not saying that's exactly what we see straight away. So it's not hard to see how it could end up being perfect for Liverpool. But I guess when you join a team that is performing very, very well with a really strong group of players already in that position, a team trying to hit the absolute highest standards so that they can challenge for all of the major trophies, you just have to probably take a bit of time to get up to speed, mentally and physically as much as anything else. So let's hope we see that ASAP.
Okay, everyone fit, optimum fitness, optimum form. What's Liverpool's best midfield three? We'll all have a go. This is a bit off the cuff from me. Sam, you go first. Liverpool's best midfield three. Everyone's 10 out of 10 for fitness, 10 out of 10 for form. Who's the three that you pick?
I mean,
and don't Jonathan Wilson me and say it depends on the opposition. I don't want any of that. Just
no. Fine. The first name on the team sheet here is Dominic Szoboszlai, who is outrageously good and setting the tone for them in so many ways. Alexis, I think, has been really strong, and I wouldn't drop him, so I'll drop Alexis in, and I'm going to make Ali Maxwell smile and say Curtis Jones is the truth, the God honest truth,
lovely.
And he's really important, and he just he's that connective tissue midfielder. He's the sticky glue that kind of puts it all together. I know with you sort of hinting very heavily at fully fit, the question becomes, well, what about Thiago Alcantara? Because what a footballer, and how dumb it feels to leave him out. But does he suit this Liverpool 3.0? I just don't know.
No, probably not. Ali, would you agree with that midfield three?
Yeah, I'm a bit intimidated by Sam's incredible poetic phrasing of the connective tissue midfielder. That's really
that is intimidating. It's difficult to disagree with the phrase like that, isn't it? I've never heard that phrase before.
I've never used that phrase before, but I guarantee you I will use it 10 times in the next few weeks on other shows. I think I'm probably with Sam. I think it's difficult because we don't have a clear idea of Gravenberch's exact level at the moment, and obviously Gakpo has played a very attacking central midfield role, but it doesn't feel like the most natural fit. So I'm happy to go with Curtis Jones at the moment, on top of the other two who I definitely agree with.
Yeah, I think Alexis and Szoboszlai have to be in there, but I also think when Gravenberch is fit, he's firing. I think he possibly gets in, but then Alexis is sitting as the lone six, which I'm not 100% sure about, but I do think Gravenberch has got the legs and engine to get around and drop in when needed, and kind of Szoboszlai could come in as a 10, and they both sit together. I I'd like Curtis Jones though as well, but I'll take Curtis Jones out and I'll go with Gravenberch because I really hyped him up at that one.
You asked the
point.
question, mate.
I know. I'm going to break that connective tissue. Was it connective tissue? Was that the phrase?
Yeah.
I'm going to break that.
Which makes which leads to a greater injury risk, which is maybe apt for Gravenberch.
You'd imagine. So I mean, none of the only Szoboszlai makes it into the WhoScored combined 11 in terms of form so far this season. So I'll rattle through the Merseyside combined 11. Alisson in goal, Joe Gomez at right back, Tarkowski and Van Dijk centre back, Robertson, who may well be injured actually at the weekend, so probably shouldn't be in the 11 now because we don't usually put injured players in, but I assume this was done before he was walking around in a sling. And it's Onana, Garner and Szoboszlai in midfield, and then Salah, Nunez and McNeil as the front three. So maybe a few more Everton players in there than you would have expected in terms of form this season, but that's what it is. That's what WhoScored and the algorithm have come up with. Let's do our predictions then to finish the Merseyside Derby segment. I'll do mine first. I've got Liverpool 3, Everton 1. Sam?
Yeah,
Sam?
I've done the same thing.
Yeah, it felt like that might be a popular prediction.
Feels like a 3-1.
Yeah. Ali?
Liverpool 3, Everton 0.
Nearly's gone for the day. I feel like Liverpool don't keep many clean sheets, but I'm not sure I'm correct in that assumption. But we'll see. We'll see what happens at the weekend. The differentiator there: Chelsea against Arsenal, London derby, and Ali. Actually, I think this game shows how quickly football can change. Because do you remember that game a few years ago when Lukaku was starting up front for Chelsea? I think it was his debut, and he ran riot. I think Reece James scored as well, and Chelsea just looked like they're light years ahead of Arsenal. Fast forward a few years, and Chelsea look like they're light years away from Arsenal in a completely different way. And I always think, people say Man U are years off winning the title, years off challenging for the title. Football can change really, really fast, and I think this fixture's proof of that.
Well, yeah, football can change really fast. Part of the reason we're sitting here and there seems to be such a big gap between the two teams is that Chelsea changed really, really fast.
Yes.
Quite a few times since then, and that's probably not conducive to maintaining a really consistent high level. And Arsenal, to kind of stretch the narrative, have been pretty steady in that time period, and their improvements were not incredible initially for a year, for 2 years, but suddenly you look back over a body of work of Arteta and Arsenal, and you can't argue with the levels that they're hitting, and possibly because they were patient with it and they built something sustainably. Now it is, they can be more confident and in its consistency, whereas Chelsea are still obviously trying to find any sort of consistent performance level, even for 3 games in a row, let alone a whole season. So I'm really interested to see how this one goes, and it could be, I think it's a good time for Arsenal to play Chelsea, having beaten City, and presumably, again, just that sort of, if there was an inferiority complex, that's going to have been blown away, and I'd love to see Arsenal develop even more of a kind of swagger and really live the role of title candidates.
Yeah, that result will do wonders for Arsenal, especially the way they did it, Sam, as well, with it coming so late. And they'll feel now that'll give them real belief, I think, in this title race, that they've evolved and improved from last season, that they can kind of go all the way. We've just spoke about Liverpool as well. I've kind of got Man City, Arsenal and Liverpool down as the top 3 in the Premier League this year in no particular order. Who's closer to challenging Manchester City? Is it Arsenal, who obviously have done it last year but have evolved a little bit and changed their team? Is it Liverpool, who've completely changed from what they were last year, but they've got a lot of the players who've been there and done that and gone toe-to-toe with City before? Which team do you think is closer?
Yeah, you've definitely got the right sort of short list of 3 there.
Yes.
That's definitely the case. They feel
Villa are my 4th.
They feel like the top 3. I still shade towards Arsenal in this particular debate, and I can't actually articulate why, other than maybe it's just a case of football is a lot of see it to believe it, and they pushed City all the way last year. Liverpool have to close a hell of a gap in order to achieve the same thing, while also being jockeyed by Arsenal the whole way. It feels like a big step for them, and they feel like they're still in their infancy, despite the fact that obviously the midfield looks really good, considering they're only 8 games in. Darwin finally appears to be sort of settling into that role. And they're working out the kinks, aren't they, with Trent moving into midfield and back out again. It's happening, but quite slowly. I still think Arsenal I still think maybe the body of evidence last year, the fact they signed Declan Rice, the fact I just love Gabby Jesus, and that front three is so electric. That's where I go. And I can't even you can't even say, one's got midweek football and one doesn't, because obviously Liverpool have got pesky Thursdays. For them, it's pesky Thursdays anyway, which does cloud the schedule a little bit. So I still shade Arsenal, but I think it's close.
Yeah, another big thing for Arsenal in that result against City, Ali, is the fact that they did it without Bukayo Saka. He felt, he's imperative to what Arsenal do. He's probably their best player. But to win a game of that magnitude without their best player, again, that must just give them so much belief.
Yeah, you'd think so. I mean, if they haven't come out the back of that result with the filter of having no Saka, if they haven't come out of that with extra confidence, then I'd be worried about it. I'd be worried about them and their squad mentality. But I think that they have got a squad personality that is pretty strong. I think Declan Rice probably makes a big impact on that front. But I think the guys who lived it last year and will be another year older and even more motivated, perhaps, after the disappointment of last year. So just on that kind of motivation point, it's hard to see how Arsenal could be anything other than absolutely throbbing with it, and Liverpool perhaps slightly less so. All of these players want to win the title, don't they? So it's kind of a difficult one to sift between. But no, for sure, I think Arsenal at the moment, for me, have they have a higher floor, and by that I mean I think they've got way less potential for any individual match to go really wrong, whereas I think Liverpool still have that in them. And I think in a title that is generally at the moment decided by 90 plus points, I think having that level of consistency where, Arsenal's defensive numbers are really impressive this season, Liverpool's are not. Liverpool will probably score more goals this season than Arsenal, but that's not necessarily the sort of strongest dictator of where you're finishing the league table. So I do think Arsenal's just general level of control and consistency is higher than Liverpool, and that's why I would have them more likely to win the title at the moment, or more likely to challenge City, I should say. It's a great time to talk about this, isn't it? After City have lost back-to-back games, and all of a sudden feels like we can be having these conversations.
We don't get to it very often, do we?
No,
exactly.
Not at all. So Arsenal limiting City to 0.5 XG and Haaland not taking a shot. That was very, very impressive. Now at the other end, obviously they were actually limited themselves to 0.4 XG, which is slightly less and still bad. And obviously it was a big deflection late on that won the game. So you can take confidence from being able to get through that kind of game without Saka, but obviously it was a little bit sketchy. I think Arsenal deserved to win it on balance, but it came slightly fortuitously when it looked like the game was going to be a 0-0. But holding City to 0.5 XG and Haaland without a shot, and William Saliba doing that, I mean, what that must do for you in terms of confidence moving forward. Like, if you could do that against City, you can do that against literally anybody in the world, because they're the reigning treble champions. They're the best attack. They're the best team in world football. And you've just held them. They didn't get a sniff. It was amazing. So that's the bit that I would really key on from Arsenal's perspective.
Yes, Labour must just be sat there thinking, I'll take anyone. I can take anyone now. He was a monster in that game, Saliba. Very, very impressive. And Chelsea have quietly hit a little bit of form. They won 3 in a row now, Sam. And that's coincided with Cole Palmer coming into the side. What have you made of Chelsea? What have you made of Cole Palmer?
Yes, shoots of recovery. And overdue, to be honest with you. Like I've been quite high on Chelsea compared to other people this season, because maybe it's a bit of the Sean Dyche conversation from earlier, but it's been pretty obvious that some building blocks have been put into place very steadily. Again, it's a case of missing all your chances. And Chelsea have made a rod for their own backs in that perspective, because they chose their strikers, they chose who they wanted to go with, and they knew that Nicholas Jackson was still very new to senior football and potentially quite streaky. So this is their own doing. But very slowly, the building blocks are coming together. Cole Palmer feels like a fantastic signing. I loved him at the under-21 Euros. I've kind of loved him in dribs and drabs for City. I mean, bear in mind, he's been around for about 3 years now, I think, or sort of on the edges of squads, and he is yet to hit 1,000 Premier League minutes. I think he's on about 700 or something, 750. And about a third of those have come for Chelsea, so like in the last month. Considering we've all known about Cole Palmer for a long time, he really hasn't played very much football. So it's been nice to watch him actually make good on that potential, make good on the talk, show his ability. And the confidence that he has on the ball has, I think, changed something for Chelsea here. His lovely ability to link play with multiple different players and different angles. And the way he starts really wide at touchline wide, and then the ball's passed to him, and he runs towards the ball and takes the ball and knocks it forwards, and then immediately skips past a man and opens up like 15 to 20 yards for other players. I love it. I love watching him play. And for quite a tall winger as well, generally speaking, he does glide quite nicely with the ball as well. So I'm really excited for Cole Palmer. I don't know what position he ends up long-term for Chelsea. I don't even know if he has a long-term position because there's so many options. But every time at the moment he's taken to the pitch, he's making a real tangible difference to the way Chelsea are playing football. It looks confident and it looks pretty damn good.
In fairness to him as well, he got a couple of goals for City at the start of the season as well. So he's making an impact in every. Yeah, he's made an impact in every game he's been involved in really so far. So fair play to him. I watched the Burnley game. I think it was the last game week of the season. I thought he was very good in that game. Someone else who's livened up is Raheem Sterling for Chelsea. Ali, still not being picked for England though, which feels a bit weird because Maguire's still getting picked, Phillips still getting picked, Southgate's still picking that catalogue of favourites that he has, but Sterling has always been in that catalogue, whatever his form's been. But he's gone to Chelsea, and Southgate's just thought, nope, and that feels weird to me.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. He was, one of the first names on the team sheet. England's attack for a number of years was Harry Kane, first name on the team sheet, and Raheem Sterling, because I think his off-ball movement, his runs in behind, helped to sort of complement Kane and what he was offering. So Southgate's obviously decided that it's time to give some of the other players a go, and it's not like we don't have an unbelievable group of talent in those areas. So I don't think it needs to be the end of the world. And when it comes to England, if he doesn't come back and play for England again, again, I don't think it has to be a huge issue. I think from Chelsea's point of view, it's good news. I think it's difficult to know exactly how much playing for England or not has an effect on a player's confidence and their swagger and how good they're feeling about themselves. But it can't ever be a bad thing for a player like him to have a week off. Do you know what I mean? He's got a lot of miles on the clock, been playing senior football since he was 16, 17 years old. So I don't think it can hurt at all. And particularly because he has shown moments, or at least he's had 2 or 3 games really this season, where he's looked electric, speedier than I remember him looking over the last few years. So if you think of him as a kind of impressive car that needs looking after in order to hit high performance, I think that in order to hit high speeds, having a weekend off can't be a bad thing. But he needs to do it in a big game for people to really sit up, take notice, and put more pressure on Southgate, I guess, would be the inevitable outcome. Maybe this weekend will be the one. I think he's the sort of player that will benefit from Cole Palmer's presence. I think, to me, it seems clear that Chelsea's attacking players, the wide players that they have in particular, they are either off-ball players who are keen to run in behind, or they're 1v1 dribblers. And I think Palmer offers something very different, where he has composure on the ball in the final third. He doesn't slow the ball down, but he looks like he has a lot of time on it, I guess is how I would describe it. And he can thread passes better than probably anyone else in the squad. Just in that last 20 yards, they've obviously got good passes from deep in Enzo. So really positive about Palmer and the impact he'll have on players like Sterling, like Mudryk, like Jackson. Can't hurt having someone like that who's a quality creator in those tight spaces.
Yeah, we've raved about Cole Palmer, but he doesn't make the Chelsea-Arsenal combined 11. Raheem Sterling does. And I must say, from an imagery perspective, this is the most satisfying Who Scored combined 11 I've ever seen, because the symmetry of it is just beautiful. The people who are listening via audio will not be able to see this, but those watching on YouTube, they'll just see the lovely symmetry of this combined 11. So we've got David Raya in goal, Ben White, Saliba, Thiago Silva and Colwill as the back 4. Declan Rice sits in front of that back 4 with Erdegaard and Conor Gallagher either side of him. And then the front 3 is Saka, Jesus and Raheem Sterling. Let's go with our predictions then for Chelsea v Arsenal. Ali, I'll let you go first this time.
Yeah, I think a 1-1. I think maybe it's a false dawn. I think it's time for Chelsea to put in a performance that makes everyone realise that there's something to all the changes, and there's potential there. So I'm going to go for 1-1.
1-1, Sam.
I've got 2-1 to Arsenal.
2-1 to Arsenal, and I've got 2-0 So Arsenal for this one, I've gone for Arsenal clean sheet. Yeah, interesting game actually, because you would, on the way the teams have been over the last 12 months, you would just expect Arsenal to win. But I do think there's something in the fact that Chelsea have got the improvement. Might be a tougher game than some people will think. Let's do the rest of our predictions before we move on to our team in focus section. So Bournemouth against Wolves, Sam.
1-1.
1-1. I've gone for 2-0 to Wolves. I very rarely predict Wolves to win. Ali?
I'm going for 0-0 here. I reckon Bournemouth has
0-0.
spent all break working out how to tighten up, and the result will be a turgid 0-0, and they'll see it as the first building block on the steps to better results.
I mean, this would be great for George, who'd love this. If anyone ever pulls off a 0-0, I think you should get like 10 points for that. Because I think it's the most difficult result to pull off in a predictions league, I would say. Brentford v Burnley. I've gone for Brentford 2, Burnley 1. Ali?
I'm going to go for 1-1.
1-1.
You know, I'm still on the Burnley train, so it's more out of hope than expectation, but I think 1-1.
1-0 Brentford.
1-0 to Brentford. Right, Manchester City against Brighton. Sam?
3-1 to Man City.
3-1 to Man City. Ali?
2-1, late winner for Man City, 2-1.
And I've got niche for this one. I've got Manchester City 4, Brighton 2. Goals in this game for me. Newcastle against Palace, Ali?
Comfy 1-0 home win.
I've gone the same as you, Sam.
It's not comfy. I'll say what's comfy. 3-0 to Newcastle. That's comfy.
3-0 to Newcastle, is it? Okay, then. That's very nice. Forest against Luton, Sam?
2-0 Forest.
I've got exactly the same. 2-0 to Forest. Ali?
1-0 Forest.
1-0 to Forest. We've done Chelsea against Arsenal. So Sheffield United against Manchester United. I've gone for 2-1 to Manchester United. Sam?
1-0 to United. Man United.
Yeah, because you're going to have to clarify which United there. Alan?
2-0 Manchester United. Oh, no, sorry, 1-0. 1-0.
1-0 to Manchester United.
I've taken a goal up. But it was VAR. It's going to get chalked out 1-0.
Okay, very nice, very nice. Aston Villa against West Ham, Ali?
2-0 Villa.
2-0 to Villa, we love it. I've gone 2-1 to Villa, Sam?
2-2.
2-2. Ooh, Cager.
Yeah,
okay. Well, not Cager, but yeah, you get my point. Draw, another differentiator there. And then finally, Spurs against Fulham. I've gone for Spurs 3, Fulham 0. Sam?
2-0 to Spurs.
2-0 to Spurs. And finally, Ali, you?
3-1 to Spurs.
3-1 to Spurs, which segues nicely into the team in focus this week, which is Tottenham Hotspur. And you can tell the person that writes this script usually is a Spurs fan, because there was more bullet points put in for the team in focus than there usually is. He obviously wants to hear us talk about Tottenham does Ben. Sam, if Postecoglou is to maintain this unbeaten start, which looking at the fixtures is a possibility, they've got a nice run of fixtures until City at home in December. Would they then be considered title contenders? We've just reeled off the three that we think are. Spurs unlucky not to be in the discussion that we've just had?
They might feel a little bit aggrieved. No, actually, they probably wouldn't, because Spurs fans, what's been the rhetoric so far? The Spurs fans are like, no, please, just let us enjoy it. Like, stop making like outlandish projections for our club. We're just really, really happy at the moment, and we don't need to be in the race or in contention.
They just want to see good football, don't they?
They're just happy to go to the stadium and watch a bit of football play nowadays, you know, and that's great for them. So I'm actually not going to put them in contention for it right now, because I'm just going to say that the scars of history will shine through. And Dan, we've watched our team climb to the summit of the Premier League in December at Christmas. I mean, granted, it was 15 years ago, but it's happened, and we still finished sixth.
It was more than that, wasn't it?
Well, we did it in 2008, didn't we? We managed to get to...
I thought you were talking about John Gregory era, 98.
No, well, it's happened. It's certainly happened twice. The last time was under O'Neill, I think, and still finished sixth. So even with a really strong August to December, we always underestimate at this stage of the season just how long this season is for a start, how many damn games there are to play. And Tottenham, I think we can all agree, just look a little light in terms of squad quality compared to the three teams that we've talked about in terms of who are in genuine contention. There's a bunch of players here for Spurs, so I'm sure we'll get onto, who are tactically really, really important to what Tottenham are doing early doors under Ange. And they have absolutely no one that can step in and replace them if they get injured. There's like 5 or 6 of them that are irreplaceable, right? So if that's the case, and you have to anticipate some injuries through the course of the season, How they deal with that is a big question. And again, I refer back to kind of like a see it to believe it vibe sometimes in football, where Arsenal have got the depth to get through most things, to get through 3 games a week and get into April and get themselves into a good position. City can do that. That's not a problem at all. Liverpool have done it in the past. I haven't quite seen it from Tottenham. And I just think that the depth will probably be the problem for them in the end. But by problem, what do I mean? I mean, is anyone actually going to hold it against them if they're not in the title race? No, not at all.
Probably
if they
not.
can get back into the top 5, the top 4, they'll be really, really happy with that. And they're very capable of that with this squad. The top 3, however, I think is just another step and a step too far.
What you said about 5 or 6 players, if they're missing them, they can't replace them. Is the man who's missing this weekend, Basuma, one of them?
Yes, he is. He is. Yes.
Not Oliver Skip?
No.
You'll come in and do a job for a game, though. It's like a game against Fulham. That's not going to make too much difference.
Is it not going to be Pierre-Emile Hojbjerg?
True, it could be him. I always think Skip's the next man in line, but he's not.
So it could be either of them. And let's be honest, Fulham at home is negotiable without Basuma. Obviously, he's still on 4 yellows, so he might get suspended again soon, and that might be against a stronger team. But that is a relatively soft fixture to be missing a key player. But if Porro or Udogie or Vicario or actually any of the back 5 or Basuma or Maddison all drop out at any point, they are significantly weaker. They've got good options in the front 3, and then the rest of it is okay, we really need you to play 38 games, man. That's kind of how it feels. Yeah.
Very doom and gloom from you, Sam, there. Also,
no.
I think I might have learnt something there. Basuma still on 4 yellows, even though he got his second yellow and he got sent off. That still mean he's on 4 yellows.
So it doesn't because it's a red. It doesn't count apparently.
Oh, I didn't know that.
He can still get his 5-game yellow suspension if he gets another yellow.
I think the nuclear option here, which is also the vibes option, and also on a serious level, the option with the sort of most potential, but it's risky, is to get Lo Celso in there next to Pape Sarr and just go full vibes. And as Sam said, you don't want to be complacent, but it's a negotiable fixture. And I just think, could Lo Celso be the cartilage? What did he say? The connective tissue, to replace the cartilage that replaces Yves Basuma. I mean, I know he's supposedly on his way out, but I like football redemption stories. And, he's played, I think, a combined 15 minutes for Argentina over the international break. So might be a bit leggy after the flight, but he hasn't exactly charged around too much. I think you take a risk, you play Lo Celso, and if it goes well, you play him again when Basuma is suspended again, and maybe the narrative changes if he has a good game or two. Maybe not.
So hang on, I think even though he doesn't play for.
Well,
I mean that's outrageous. What national manager would ever do that?
My whole point is that there is a much higher ceiling on this, and therefore I think it's worth the risk. We know what Hojbjerg in replace of Basuma will look like. He slows the ball down to a greater extent. He's not going to penetrate defenses with passes or by carrying it as well as Basuma. So we broadly, we know what that's going to look like. We know what will happen broadly. He's very solid, obviously, and is probably the safer option. And he's got a lot of leadership. He's clearly a good personality to have, and he's got a bigger sort of leadership aspect in the squad. But I'd like to see Lo Celso. I just want to give him one more go.
No, I quite like that idea. In fact, that feels kind of Postecoglou, if that's a phrase as well. He would go for the more attacking option because of the slowing the ball down. We'll see. It'd be interesting to see who does start. So I've forgotten about Hojbjerg and said Skip. Sam said Hojbjerg, and then you've thrown in Lo Celso. So a bit like an extra to the predictions, really, to see who comes into that Spurs midfield. Yeah, bonus point this week is who plays instead of Basuma. Let's finish by talking about the goalkeeper, Ali Vicario. Probably goalkeeper of the season so far, in my opinion. I thought he'd probably be an upgrade in some ways to Lloris, but actually just all round, if you look at the numbers, and we'll flash them up on the screen now, it's been a really, really good signing, really positive signing for Spurs.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Goalkeepers in general and signing goalkeepers, I think, is one of the hardest things for Premier League clubs to do. It's such a crucial position. There is no time to adapt, as we're seeing with Onana. The pressure is immense. The mistakes are heightened, and the payoff when you make good saves and when you're doing well is smaller than the sort of disgrace that is thrown your way when you're poor. So it couldn't have gone any better so far for Vicario. It's been a brilliant signing, and credit to him for adapting so well. He made big saves, didn't he, in the first game of the season, and I just think he hasn't really looked back from here. There is another side to it. I would see it as a bit of a concern in a way that their goalkeeper is having to be the best shopper.
Not sure what
he does on his days off. Maybe he goes to Westfield. He's been the best shot stopper in the league, I think, per the kind of advanced metrics, and that's great. But again, with goalkeepers, it's in analytical terms, it doesn't necessarily mean he's going to maintain those levels of shot stopping. There's so many variables to it, a lot of luck and fortune involved as well as good performance. So I would see it as a bit of a concern in that if Vicario's performance drops to the level of an average goalkeeper at a Premier League level, suddenly Spurs are going to be conceding an extra goal every 3-4 games, and suddenly the results will maybe take a bit of a hit. So, I would prefer to see them tighten up defensively and give up fewer chances than expect Vicario to kind of keep bailing them out.
Yeah, the feet that he's got are really quite impressive, aren't they? What a way to say that. His feet are very impressive.
Feet-a-bix.
I mean, Hugo Lloris, the greatest of respect to him in the world, has never really been able to kick a ball properly, has he? Even launched long goal kicks have been a problem.
There he is with a World Cup win, and he couldn't kick the ball.
Captain.
He was fantastic as a traditional looking shot stopper, like a David De Gea style goalkeeper for a long time. But he couldn't do what Vicario does with the ball at his feet. Like, he wouldn't be able to receive those pinged passes from Bissouma, who passes it to Bissouma, draws the press on, Bissouma straight back, and then left or right out to Porro or to Van der Ven or whoever. Like, what he's doing with the ball at his feet, Lloris can't do. So he has elevated Spurs' game and allowed them to play to Ange Postecoglou's tactical style in a way that Hugo Lloris simply cannot. And then he's also the league's best shot stopper, according to the advanced metrics. So I'm not surprised he's your goalkeeper of the season so far, Dan. He's been perfect, basically, in every single way. And he has allowed them to play a style that would probably be a lot like Man United trying to play out the back with De Gea, but if it was Hugo Lloris. So massive credit to him, because, and this doesn't happen very often, it was a real blindsiding. Like, I didn't really know who he was. And
I didn't know much about him.
I too tuned in for the odd Udinese game. I watch a bit of Salernitana. Sunday at 11:30 a.m. in England. There's no other game on except in Russia. Why not watch a bit of Serie A? But I'd still not really know who he was. And look at him, he's perfect. He can do everything. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, Lloris had errors leading to goals 4, but they weren't particularly playing like an expansive brand of football, Spurs, last season either, but was just struggling with the ball at his feet, which led to goals conceded. I think that's the most impressive thing about Vicario, and you've mentioned the metrics for shot stopping. The fact that they are playing this really expansive brand of football, and he hasn't been caught out. To my knowledge, I don't remember him looking even close to making. Not that I've watched every Spurs game, but the ones I have watched, I don't remember him coming close to making a mistake. He's just been pinging that ball around, receiving the ball, almost like a number 6 midfielder. He's been really, really impressive in a number of ways so far. Vicario, I mean, I've got the same barber as a member of the Spurs coaching team, and the barber said to me, "Oh, he's been raving about the goalkeeper, says the goalkeeper's next level." And I looked at it and looked where they got him from and thought, really, can he be? And he was absolutely right. He's been absolutely brilliant. Sometimes the things you hear at the barbers, they're the important things you need to pick up in terms of football knowledge. So yeah, little story, a little bit of Jack and Nora to end the podcast this week. That does do us for this week's Edge of the Box. Thanks to Sam and to Ali for joining me today, especially Ali, who it really was a last second call up, and he performed excellently as always. So thank you very much to you both. Wherever you're taking in this podcast, if you could please subscribe, like, comments, all that jazz that helps us grow, we'd really, really appreciate it. It's been another enjoyable podcast this week. If you've learned something, subscribe. Like me, I learned about the yellow card thing this week. If you've learned something in the podcast, why not subscribe and take in next week's as well? Tell all your friends and family about the podcast and have a great weekend.